Ever wonder what's playing in the secret movie theater of a woman's mind? I'm not talking about the nightly surreal blockbusters of REM sleep dreams, but the quiet matinees, the daydreams that flicker behind her eyes while she's stirring her coffee, sitting in a meeting, or staring out a rain-streaked window. These fleeting fantasies are some of our most private possessions, so much so that one study found 80% of people would rather confess an embarrassing moment than reveal the contents of their daydreams. As a psychologist, I see this inner world not as an escape from reality, but as a direct line to its very core. These mental wanderings are the raw, uncensored scripts of our deepest hopes, our most pressing fears, and our most powerful, unmet desires. For centuries, we've labored under the myth that women are complex, that they are intricate puzzles to be solved. But in my years of practice, I've found that women aren't inherently complicated. They're just profoundly misunderstood. The problem isn't that they're a difficult math equation, but that too many people are trying to solve them with the wrong formula, using a logic that doesn't apply. We often look at women through a distorted lens, colored by our own assumptions and biases. We expect direct, linear communication, and when we don't get it, we throw our hands up in frustration. But a woman's language is often far richer and more nuanced. It's not just in the words she says, but in the ones she doesn't. Her true communication lies in the tone of her voice, the look in her eyes, a subtle gesture, or even a profound silence. When she says, "I'm fine," she might be saying, "I'm exhausted," or "I feel lonely," or simply, "I need a hug." It's not a riddle. It's an invitation to connect on a deeper, more intuitive level, to listen with more than just your ears. The men and women who succeed in building profound relationships are the ones who learn to hear this unspoken language, to understand that a woman's emotional shifts aren't random mood swings, but signals. They can be rooted in biological hormones, societal pressures, or a heightened sensitivity to her environment. She isn't asking for you to solve her problems. She's hoping you're perceptive enough to simply notice. To be understood, for many women, is the greatest form of security. This is where daydreams become such a powerful diagnostic tool. If the outer world demands a carefully curated performance, the inner world of daydreams is where the authentic self gets to run wild. It's a space where the psyche can speak freely, revealing the tensions between our conscious lives and our unconscious needs. The great pioneers of psychology, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, both saw dreams as a royal road to the unconscious. Freud believed they were a playground for our repressed wishes and primal urges, the desires our conscious mind deemed too taboo to acknowledge. Jung expanded on this, viewing dreams and fantasies as a dialogue between our conscious ego and the vast, mysterious realm of the personal and collective unconscious. He saw them as the mind's natural way of processing problems and seeking wholeness. And what is a daydream if not a dream we have with our eyes open? It's a conscious dip into the vast ocean of the unconscious. Far from being a sign of laziness or a lack of focus, daydreaming is one of the brain's most vital and productive functions. We now know that we spend nearly half of our waking hours with our minds wandering. And during these moments, our brains aren't shutting down. They're firing up in a completely different way. When you zone out, your brain often enters an alpha wave state, a state of relaxed, calm alertness. This is the brain's natural rest and digest mode. In our hyperproductive, always-on culture that glorifies being busy, we've come to see this state as a flaw. But no brain can operate at peak performance 24/7. Daydreaming is the mind's way of taking a necessary breather, reducing anxiety and pressure, and allowing for recovery and consolidation. It's during these moments of unstructured thought that our brains do some of their most brilliant work. Think about it. When do your best ideas come to you? Rarely is it when you're staring intently at a spreadsheet. It's usually when you're engaged in a repetitive, low-stakes task that doesn't require intense focus, like taking a shower, washing dishes, or going for a long drive. In these moments, your brain switches from a focused, analytical mode to a diffuse, associative one. This allows it to access different neural networks, connect disparate pieces of information from your subconscious, and string together ideas in novel ways. It's no wonder, then, that so many people who daydream frequently are found to be more intelligent and creative. Their brains are simply more efficient. Like a gifted student who grasps a concept in 1 minute while their classmates need 5, their minds have leftover capacity that naturally drifts toward other horizons. So, what are these horizons? What are the recurring movies playing in the cinemas of women's minds? While every individual's inner world is unique, certain powerful themes emerge again and again, each revealing a core desire. The fantasy of absolute freedom, winning the lottery and quitting it, all one of the most common daydreams I hear about, both in my practice and in the anonymous confessions of the internet, is the "what if I won the lottery" scenario. One woman on a Reddit forum succinctly described her go-to daydream as "my resignation letter after winning the lottery." Others chime in with detailed fantasies of paying off debts, buying a dream home, and traveling the world. On the surface, this seems like a simple fantasy about money, but it's rarely just about the cash. It's a fantasy about liberation for many women, who are often socialized to be caretakers and to put the needs of others, children, partners, parents, employers, before their own. The weight of responsibility can be immense. The daily grind of juggling a career, managing a household, and providing emotional labor for everyone around them is exhausting. The lottery fantasy isn't about greed. It's about the desire for autonomy. It's the dream of a life where their time is entirely their own, where they are no longer beholden to a boss, a schedule, or anyone else's expectations. This often ties into what psychologists call the suffering martyr daydream. This narrative involves imagining a situation where you are finally appreciated after being taken for granted. In its most extreme form, it might involve fantasizing about getting sick or even dying, just to see others finally realize how much you did for them. A less dramatic version is simply the dream of walking away. It's the fantasy of saying, "I'm done," and having the financial freedom to make that a reality. It's about wanting your immense, often invisible labor to finally be acknowledged. This daydream is a signal, a flashing red light from the psyche that says, "I feel unappreciated," or "I feel trapped." It's a deep-seated desire for rest, recognition, and the freedom to choose a life built around one's own needs and joys, not just duties. The fantasy of power, purpose, and a room of one's own, closely related to the fantasy of escape, is the daydream of achievement and self-realization. While one woman dreams of quitting her job, another dreams of running the company. Women today daydream about their careers twice as much as they did half a century ago. These aren't just idle fantasies. They are mental rehearsals for achieving goals. They imagine themselves as successful entrepreneurs creating clothing lines for people with disabilities, as celebrated artists with a cabin in the woods, or as brilliant detectives solving unsolvable cases. Some imagine themselves as writers, crafting entire universes in their minds with complex political factions and sci-fi species. These conquering, hero daydreams reflect a profound need for agency and competence in a world that has historically limited women's roles. For millennia, the primary domain for a woman was the home. Her identity was defined by her relationship to others, daughter, wife, mother. Advertising and media have relentlessly reinforced this, portraying women as the primary keepers of the household. Their greatest fulfillment found in making the perfect family meal or having the cleanest laundry. The message, both overt and subliminal, has been that a woman's mission is inside the home, but the modern woman's psyche is pushing back. The daydreams of professional success and creative mastery are a form of rebellion. They are a declaration that her value is not solely tied to her domestic contributions. This is a central theme in feminist thought, the fight for a woman to be seen as a whole person, with ambitions and talents that extend beyond the kitchen. When a woman daydreams about becoming a CEO or writing a novel, she is exploring an identity that is hers and hers alone. She is claiming her right to intellectual and creative fulfillment, to build something in the world that carries her name. It's a powerful expression of the desire to be the protagonist in her own life story, not a supporting character in someone else's. The intimate fantasy, romance, connection, and being truly seen. Of course, no exploration of women's inner worlds would be complete without talking about love and romance. Daydreams are fertile ground for matters of the heart. Women fantasize about crushes on coworkers, imagining witty banter and flirtatious moments. They replay cherished memories with a partner, reliving an unforgettable kiss or a moment of deep connection. They construct elaborate scenarios with celebrity crushes or imagine a future with a dream prince who doesn't yet exist. Again, it's easy to dismiss these as simple romantic fluff, but they reveal something much deeper about what women often crave in a relationship. It's not just about finding a partner. It's about finding a particular kind of connection. As we've discussed, women often communicate on multiple levels. Their daydreams about love reflect this. They fantasize about a partner who understands their unspoken needs, who sees their efforts, and who loves them not just for how they look or what they do, but for who they truly are. This is where the classic "men are from Mars, women are from Venus" dynamic comes into play. A man might show his love by working hard to provide, but if he doesn't also ask, "How was your day?" or offer a hug when she's stressed, she might feel emotionally abandoned. His love, however sincere, isn't being expressed in a language she can easily receive. Her daydreams, then, might fill in the gaps. She might fantasize about a man who listens intently, who values her thoughts and feelings, and who expresses his love through small, consistent acts of attention and care. These daydreams are a map to her emotional needs.
If she's fantasizing about an ex, it might not mean she wants him back.
It could be that her current relationship lacks a certain passion or connection that she associates with that past love. If she's dreaming of a colleague, it might be about the thrill of being seen as intelligent and desirable in a new context. These fantasies are the heart's way of saying, "This is what I'm missing. This is what feeling loved and desired feels like to me." The forbidden fantasy, exploring the shadows of sexuality now. Let's venture into the part of the daydream theater that is often kept under lock and key, the realm of sexual fantasy. This is where Freud would have a field day, and for good reason. Our sexual daydreams are often where our most repressed, taboo, and powerful desires come to the surface. Research by sex educator Justin Lehmiller has identified several major themes in sexual fantasies, and they are incredibly common. It turns out what happens in our minds is often far more wild than what happens in our bedrooms. One of the most frequent fantasies for all genders, but especially prevalent for men and increasingly so for women, is multi-partner sex. The idea of a threesome or an orgy is a powerful turn-on for many. This isn't just about pure hedonism. As sex therapists explain, it's often about the intoxicating feeling of being the center of attention, the star of the show. The idea that multiple people find you so irresistible that they all want you at once is a tremendous ego boost and a validation of one's desirability. Another major category is power. Control and rough sex, often referred to as BDSM. Fantasies involving dominance, submission, bondage, or spanking are incredibly common. For a woman who spends her days in a high-stress job where she is always in control, the idea of surrendering that control in the bedroom can be an enormous release. Being tied up or blindfolded isn't just about the physical sensation. It's about the radical trust required to be that vulnerable with a partner. Conversely, for a woman who often feels powerless in her life, fantasizing about taking control, being the dominant one, can be incredibly empowering. These fantasies allow women to explore dynamics of power in a safe, consensual context, liberating them from the passive roles they are often expected to play. We also see daydreams about novelty and adventure, sex on a beach, in an airplane bathroom, or with a stranger. This taps into the brain's love for adrenaline and the thrill of the unknown. And then there are the taboo fantasies, the ones that defy societal norms. This can range from fetishes to exploring different gender roles or even fantasies that don't align with one's identified sexual orientation. A straight woman might fantasize about being with another woman, not necessarily because she wants to change her orientation, but because it allows her to explore a different kind of sensuality and connection, free from the dynamics of her usual relationships. These sexual daydreams are not literal commands. They are symbolic explorations. They are the psyche's way of playing with power, trust, novelty, and freedom. They are a safe space to engage with our shadow self, as Carl Jung would call it, the parts of ourselves that we repress or hide because they don't fit into our neat, socially acceptable persona. In Vietnamese literature from the early 21st century, for example, many female writers began to boldly explore themes of female sexuality and desire, portraying characters who sought sexual liberation through affairs of the mind or body. This wasn't just about sex. It was a powerful act of claiming autonomy over their own bodies and desires. A woman's sexual fantasies are often a powerful metaphor for her desire for a more liberated life in general. The cultural dreamscape, how our fantasies are shaped it. It is also crucial to remember that no daydream exists in a vacuum. The symbols and narratives that populate our inner worlds are deeply influenced by the culture we live in. As Carl Jung proposed with his concept of the collective unconscious, all of humanity shares a set of universal archetypes: the hero, the great mother, the trickster, the wise old man. These are primal patterns that appear in myths, legends, and religions across the world. Our daydreams often tap into this collective wellspring. The conquering hero is a manifestation of the hero archetype. A fantasy about being nurtured and cared for might tap into the Great Mother. However, the specific form these archetypes take is colored by our personal experiences and our cultural context. Consider the symbol of a snake. In a Western context influenced by Freudian psychology, a snake in a dream or fantasy might symbolize phallic energy, sexuality, or danger. In Hindu traditions, a snake can represent fertility and prosperity. For the Hopi people in America, it's connected to agriculture and the richness of the soil. And in some Christian communities, it is a clear symbol of evil. The meaning is not inherent in the symbol itself, but in the cultural language we use to interpret it. So when we analyze a woman's daydreams, we must also consider the cultural narratives she has been fed. Is her fantasy of sacrifice a personal desire, or is it an internalization of a cultural script that tells her a good woman is a self-sacrificing one? Is her dream of being a fierce warrior a rejection of the damsel in distress trope she grew up with? Our daydreams are a conversation not only with ourselves but with the entire culture that has shaped us, bringing the daydream into the daylight. So what do we do with all this information? What does a woman do when she notices recurring themes in her daydreams? And how can those who love her use this understanding to build a stronger connection? The first step is simply to pay attention without judgment. Your daydreams are a form of self-to-self communication. They are pointing toward your goals, reminding you of your needs, and flagging areas of your life that might be out of balance. If you consistently daydream about being somewhere else, it might be a sign that you need a change, not necessarily a new life, but perhaps a new hobby, a trip, or just more time for yourself. If you fantasize about more romance, it might be an invitation to communicate that need to your partner or to learn to romance yourself. The daydream is not always a literal instruction manual. A fantasy about having an affair doesn't automatically mean you should cheat on your partner. It's a signal to look deeper. Why are you having this fantasy? Is it about a lack of passion in your current relationship? A desire for an adrenaline rush? A need to feel seen and desired in a new way? The fantasy is the symptom, not the diagnosis. It's the starting point for a deeper inquiry into your unmet needs. This is why sharing daydreams can be such a powerfully intimate act, though it's one we're often terrified of. Revealing our fantasies is to reveal our most vulnerable selves. But for a partner, being invited into that secret world is an incredible gift. It's being handed the map to a woman's heart and soul. It's an opportunity to say, I see you. I hear what you're not saying, and I want to help you build a real life that feels as good as your richest daydreams. Ultimately, the rich, vibrant, and sometimes chaotic worlds that women build in their minds are not a distraction from life. They are an essential part of it. They are the engine of creativity, the laboratory for problem solving, the rehearsal stage for our future selves, and the sacred space where our truest desires are allowed to speak. To understand a woman is to respect the profound importance of this inner life. It is to recognize that her strength and her softness, her ambition and her tenderness, her spoken words and her silent daydreams are all part of the same beautiful, intricate, and powerful story. Understanding this isn't about unlocking a secret. It's about learning to love and appreciate the whole person, both the one you see before you and the one who lives in a world of infinite possibility just behind her eyes.